Hello, Exiles. Long time no see. We have a bit of a different video for you here, something about a topic that I almost never go in depth on, and appropriately so. I'm not even really the person who came up with this. That's my buddy Nino here. Nino, go ahead and say hi to the audience.
Hello, audience.
That's Nino. You might have noticed him from live streams. You might have noticed the secondary cardboard head figure sometimes thrown into my thumbnails. That's him. He's my buddy, my partner in crime, the cardboard bastard who's always playing Path of Exile with me, at least the first one. Still not the biggest fan of the second, which is fair. They gotta get some shit done on that game. Anyway, the whole gist of why this video is being made, though, is Nino found a very cost-effective way to do some very fun. How do we put this? Not inconsistent, but volatile farming. Right. The ceiling for what you can get is very high, and it's very interesting, which is a lot of fun to do. You might have seen this on a live stream I did earlier, and the general gist of the strategy is Vaal Temple, but I'm gonna let Nino explain exactly why Vaal Temple works out and like kind of how you get into it and why Vaal Temple specifically, why Vaal Temple specifically works with the Scarabs that he found were kind of cheap right now.
So effectively, Vaal Temple map has an implicit that says area contains 10 additional guarded Vaal vessels. Now that can seem somewhat inconspicuous at first. They are effectively strong boxes, and I noticed while running one that it gave me a chance to open it again, meaning that those vessels are also affected by the Atlas passives that affect strong boxes. After some testing, found that they are also affected by the Scarabs, such as the Scarab of Potency that gives increased effective explicit modifiers on strong boxes, as well as, from what I can tell, Scarab of Discernment that gives likely to be rare varieties. It seems like there's a pattern of what those vessels can be. Sometimes you'll get explosions of maps, sometimes explosions of gems, explosions of currency, and so on. Now, I can't guarantee that it's affected by that, but from what I've seen, I believe it is. The nice thing about Vaal Temple is effectively it's 10 more free strong boxes without having to do anything special, in addition to that map already having very good density. Not the best layout, but so much opportunity for uniques dropping corrupted and whatnot, especially jewels dropping corrupted to get corrupted blood can't be implied to you implicit, as well as reservation efficiency implicits and whatnot. But it effectively allows us to take advantage of a strongbox strat that would normally be used in T17s using the very expensive Scarab of Containment, and instead run it on a more manageable map that it would be more accessible to a lot of builds on a T16 and still get quite a few additional strong boxes on a much lower investment.
Yeah, so just kind of going over this real quick. Vaal Temple's last I checked, I'm sure you have a more up-to-date price. We're going for about 20C a pop, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, depending on the hour, anywhere from 20 to 25 chaos.
Yeah. So 20C a pop for the vessel, and then ambush scarabs are like 1 or 2C a pop. Well, 2 to 3C a pop is probably a better way to put it. The potency and the hidden compartments, if you're running that, are generally also in the very cheap range, and the discernment was like 6 or 7C a pop. So the actual investment per map is quite low, generally less than 40C per, and you are more or less guaranteed to get that back in a given map. I should say it's possible, right? You shouldn't ever go into a farming strategy with like just a one-off hoping for a Hail Mary. But I think more often than not, we walk out of those maps with something worth at least a divine. The downside in that vein is it takes a long time, actually, because you have so much stuff you get that you cannot possibly already know all about, and like there's a price checking angle, but that's also part of the fun, right? It's very volatile in the sense that you're going to see equipment that is usable and desired and worth a lot of money, but just like how do you quantify like a double corrupted crit multi-jewel, right? How often do you see that? How often do you go around double corrupting crit multi-jewels, for that matter? But I use that as my own personal example because I found one that was worth 10 divs, and sure enough, it sold a few days later. So I was very, very surprised by that personally.
On that note, one thing I would say with a lot of the lower level uniques and whatnot that'll get double corruptions, if you see one that's especially looking out for like gloves with curse on hit, helmets with plus to power charges, amulets with extra curse, things like that, I have a tab in my stash that's just listed for 1 div. I'll just throw it up in there, and eventually if it sells, cool. If it doesn't, whatever. But that's a fairly easy way to go about managing some items that might be a little more difficult to price check because they have such a niche.
So the other great thing about the strategy is, honestly, the Atlas tree you use for it is very flexible. I have a very generic one here that I use for like alch&go to just kind of get drops from bosses, but it happens to have all the strongbox nodes because those are very non-invasive, and that's really all that like super matters for getting the strat done. You want obviously your extra strongbox, your chance to be openable again, your corrupted and rare, and then of course your chance for the drops to be for certain drops to be duplicated. And this is important because surprisingly, in Nino's experience at least, duplicating maps is very profitable, isn't it? Don't you get a decent amount of like T16.5 and T17 drops doing this?
Get a ton of them. I would say on average you're probably returning 1 T17 per map. Now that's not all at once, but you will have boxes that with that duplication, if it drops 2, it drops 4. And those Ziggurat is the one that I've been seeing the most of. They are about 25 chaos a piece. Now the downside is they are going to be corrupted, which
that's not a downside if it's an 8 mod already, to be fair.
Yeah,
if it corrupts into an 8 mod, you're in a great mood.
Yeah, it can be a little bit unfortunate there when you hit one that's corrupted that doesn't look very good. You're never going to be able to sell it. Now obviously go run it yourself if you want. There's still good stuff to be gotten from T17s, but yeah, you get a ton of originator maps. Same thing, they're going to be corrupted, but they are so plentiful. I mean, I have filled up multiple map stashes over a couple days of my favorite maps just because you get so many of them, and probably about, I'd say 5 to 10% at minimum are originator maps, which tend to sell for a little bit more.
And that's kind of an important thing to consider, because obviously there are like map farming strategies that produce more maps, but this is kind of in addition to everything else you're getting. Your odds for either just big raw currency drops, you know, a big div drop, a really nice double corrupt either on a jewel or a unique item, that sort of thing. But also you have kind of a map currency, I shouldn't say map currency, a map production that isn't negligible in any sort of way. It's going to very likely produce enough currency to pay for the map on its own if nothing else does, generally over a farming session at least. Now the other thing about this strategy is that because they're just a T16, you can actually do this on most builds, if not basically all of them. I'm not going to necessarily say you can do the map boss, which could be profitable because one of the boss does drop an adorned fragment.
Yes,
yeah.
Cooperation drops from the map boss, which recently had a spike from about 40C to a div, and I would say 15 to 20% drop chance, which honestly at that rate pretty much pays for the strategy itself with the current cost of divines.
So,
if you can
yeah, so it's good if you can do the boss, you get some extra income there. If you can't do the boss, that doesn't mean this isn't worth doing. When I did it on one of my leveling builds, which I've kind of retired at this point, but I did it on that build, and I did not kill the boss at all, and I still profited insanely after a few hours of running Vaal temples. I actually made, I want to say, like 45 divs, which was nuts. That might be a little higher than you can expect, but like I said, it's volatile. There's huge capacity for like massive drops, those big dopamine hits, but there's also enough there to pay for itself and make some profit on its own, even if you're not running the boss. So one of the ways to make it more effective if you can't really kill the boss is to go with your basic borrowed power nodes on the tree. You have like a +1 shrine, you know, additional shrine buffs here, the extra shrine from the small nodes. You can go for Nico with the voltaxic sulfite and then the sulfite infusion. All of those will make the map a little bit faster, which is good because like we said, these maps aren't run quickly. They take time, both because you have to hunt down all the boxes, you get like repeat openings, and just the amount of stuff you get that you're gonna have to take a moment to like determine its value is crazy, which if you don't like that, maybe this strat isn't for you, but I think a lot of people are gonna like that because we certainly like it, and it's a very interesting, great way to shake up the game and also have just like crazy profit potential in a given map.
One of my biggest things that I would add would just be get ready if you're going to take on this strat to balance your time out with liquidation as well. A lot of your money is going to come from the little, you know, 1 and 2 chaos scarabs. Honestly, as crazy as it sounds, at Ziri fragments, the sacrifice at dusk, midnight, dawn, and noon, those don't sell for a lot.
The midnights and the noons do. I'm gonna plug that in real quick. They actually sell pretty good.
You get so many of them. After you run 10 or 20 of these maps, you'll have so many of those fragments. You take a minute to unload them at the currency exchange, and you'll get an extra 80 to 100 chaos probably. from all of those fragments, going through and selling your scarabs, the little 1 and 2 chaos ones. I mean, they might not be worth a lot, but you get so many of them that it does add up. And I mean, it's not unreasonable at all to run this strat for a couple hours and then sit down at currency exchange and unload 1,000 to 1,500 chaos with scarabs and fragments and bubblegum currency and things like that. You wouldn't necessarily think on the surface was really generating as much profit
gems.
as it did.
You get a ton of level 21 gems. You get some 2120 gems as well, which can be quite valuable.
Yeah.
And you get a ton of just like generic percent quality gems, which you can then turn around and sell for a ton of GCPs, which is also very big bubblegum currency. That's going to get you a lot of chaos orbs over time. That's another one that probably on its own kind of pays for the strategy.
Agreed. Yeah, there's a lot of level 20 and 21 gems that even if they're corrupted and not qualitied, will still sell for between 10 and 30 chaos, just because quality might not matter on them to people. So just going through, having a dump tab for gems that you can go through and just real quick check each one. It'll be 10 chaos here, 20 chaos there. It adds up very, very quickly.
And of course, as a final note, in case I didn't go over this before, we'll go over it again if I did. You have your temple map. You do want your 6-slot device. If you don't have 6 slots, I would say probably get that first, because having all of the scarabs in concert is kind of important. You want at least 2 ambush scarabs in separate slots, a potency scarab, a discernment scarab, and then the last slot can either be just another regular ambush scarab or a hidden compartments. We've done the math, and it seems like it's kind of break even on which one goes. If you put in a normal ambush scarab, you have like a slightly better chance of maybe getting more consistently having an Arcanist or a Diviners or some sort of high quality box, cartographers showing up in the map. But hidden compartments can trigger on the Vaal vessels. So if you really like the Vaal vessel loot, you probably want to go with hidden compartments, because you're going to get more chances to drop like big double crops and whatnot. But they seem to be about even. So that's how did we describe it? Dealer's choice?
It's dealer's choice on that. I like more boxes because it's more chances for diviners boxes and arcanist boxes and whatnot. But when coupled with the note on the tree, a 25% chance to be openable again if that pops on your arcanist box or your diviners.
It's actually 29. I'm sorry, 31. 31.
31.
Yeah,
okay.
You get 16% from the tree.
Ah, that's true. It ends up being a pretty big chunk. It's not uncommon to see, to pop a box and be able to open it 3 or 4 additional times, which if that procs on your well-rolled Arcanist box, that's some money there.
Okay. That's it for this. I hope you guys enjoy the strat. If you try it, it's definitely paid the two of us in spades, honestly. We made way more money than we needed and then some. Nino's been kind of going properly hard on it, and he's making money hand over fist consistently for a while now. So we got very confident for making this video. This probably isn't a new strat, right? We know people have done this in the past, but the reason we really wanted to bring it up is because all of these scarabs are so cheap right now. Like, none of these, I would say discernment especially feels like it's underpriced for what it does.
I looked it up while we were chatting here in the explanation, and discernments, at least as of right now, are only about 2 to 3 chaos apiece, and the other
They've
scarabs
gone down.
are
It's even cheaper.
The other scarabs are 1 to 2. So I mean, on average, you could probably expect, let's say, 5 to 6 chaos in scarabs, plus the cost of your map, and then 3 chaos to put ambush on the map. Very easy to get into, and returns so quickly if you're willing to take the time to liquidate. It's very easy to manage.
Anyway, that's it for now. Have a good one, Exiles, and hopefully in the future I'll have a new build guide going for the character I'm running right now, who is, well, I talked about the Stormburst League starter, but I'm looking to take it a little higher than that, so a little bit of a preview for that, I guess, as well, going on here. Anyway, Nino, anything to say? Any sign off? What is Nino's catchphrase?
I paid for 6 portals, and I'm going to use them.